these, and I'm so grateful for your support to come out, and it's a wonderful one. So thank you for having me. Thank you, Joan. This is our second rodeo. We did this last year at the Naval Dodge Manhunt House. That's right. So I guess let's kick off with some questions, and then I really look forward to having your questions.
Okay. Who has read the entire book? Okay. All right. So I'm not going to spoil the ending, okay? But I was telling Valerie I really liked this book even better than the first one, because the first one was kind of an intro to Vanessa Pierson and also to that life, and this just has much more complexity, I believe. Starting off with as I joked before, a bang, with an explosion in Paris, and then it's just action-packed, and I'm not going to give away the ending because it goes all the way to the end. So I'm going to ask questions of Valerie about the writing of this book and also politics, and I'm sure this looks like the kind of crowd that will have their own questions of politics, okay?
Can you speak up a little bit, please?
Okay, I wish we had a microphone, but that's okay. Okay, for these two novels, you collaborated with Sarah Lovett, a Santa Fe author with her own series featuring the character Dr. Sylvia Strange. Please describe how that writing process worked.
Can everyone hear the question? The writing process? Yes. I'm fortunate to have as my co-author Sarah Lovett. We were sort of set up on a blind date by my publisher. She happens to live in Santa Fe as well, but that wasn't really why it worked. It's nice that occasionally we do meet, but we do a lot of our work just back and forth on the computer. I think the best way to describe our process is what I bring to it is the CIA stuff, the plot, the characters, based a lot upon people that I knew or composites. Really, truth is stranger than fiction. And the places. All the places that are mentioned. In Burned, we start out, as Joan mentioned, in Paris. We go to Amsterdam, London briefly, through Venice at Carnival, and ending up in one of my favorite cities in the world, Istanbul. And these are all places where I have lived or worked or played, and that's important to me because even though you can do amazing research online with Google Earth and all that, it's not the same as having walked the streets. Sarah, having her experience as a thriller writer, she really understands how to pace things and to build tension, that crafting that I'm still learning. And she also understands that it's just as important what you cut as to what you leave in. So.
Did you actually, how often would you get together?
Not that often, really. She's a single mother, and I've got two teenagers, so just that alone makes getting together sometimes scheduling difficult. But I will tell you, when we started off with Burned, it started out last summer. If any of you know the hiking mountain Atalaya in Santa Fe, we said, let's go for a hike and we'll plot out Act 1, Act 2, Act 3. And Atalaya looks really gentle, and they always put it in the guidebooks. It always says easy, except it's not. It gets pretty steep, the top third. So as we're working out, we could barely talk at the top. But by the end of that, up and down 3-hour hike, we had the basics of 1, 2, and 3, and what we wanted to pick up from the first book, Blowback, and how to take this further. And as you mentioned, Joan, the idea, good, I'm glad you thought so, that we wanted to make it richer, more complex. I'm getting the hang of it.
Okay. You've said Vanessa Pierson is a younger, smarter version of you. But what about characters like Boot, Corey, among others? Where did they come from?
So Boot, which is spelled B-H-O-O-T, which means ghost in Hindi, he is the villain. He showed up first in Blowback and continues and becomes, in fact, even more menacing in Burned. And he is modeled on that Pakistani nuclear scientist A.Q. Khan, who was essentially a nuclear entrepreneur. He worked in the Netherlands in the 70s at a consortium nuclear consortium, and he stole the plans for nuclear plans and took them back to Pakistan and presented them to the then prime minister and said, Pakistan will make the first Islamic bomb. And in fact, they did. And from that then, his stature and wealth grew, and he started selling nuclear widgets around the world. You may recall in 2003, Libya was caught red-handed with its attempts to procure nuclear items for their program, and that was A.Q. Khan. And he's now under some sort of house arrest in Pakistan. He's still considered quite the hero in Pakistan, but under pressure that sometimes works from Washington, he's at least been marginalized. So that's where Boot, is completely, in my mind, a very amoral person who really was doing this for his own sense of ego and power, money to a certain extent, but not exclusively, money only as a means to power. Then Corey, his real name is David Corey, also based upon some real-life characters that I knew. He was born in Lebanon, in my fictional David Corey, born in Lebanon to a mixed marriage, both Maronite Christian as well as is Muslim. And the family, as so many middle class or educated elite left during the Lebanese Civil War. They all thought it was going to be temporary, and many of them have never gone back. But he then was raised mostly in America, went to Harvard, really smart. The CIA recruits him for the very reasons that he then falls under suspicion later. One, that he's got these language capabilities of Arabic and French, very smart, and of course has access through cousins and second cousins and so forth in a difficult part of the world. And both in Blowback and in Burned, the CIA begins to really look at him from a counterintelligence viewpoint. He falls under suspicion, but he's a love interest for Vanessa, so it's complicated.
In Burned, Vanessa seems to be frequently having to prove herself. I love this quote. She was, after all, a female in Paris and a woman on an international team where you brought your game to the table. What was that your experience in the CIA that you had to prove yourself as a woman?
Absolutely. Whether it's the CIA though or any other organization, I think most reasonable people would agree that women need to do it twice as well to be recognized for half as good, right? That it with variations on that theme, but you just have to work harder. Certainly in the CIA, it's changing. The CIA is quick to note that right now I think the second under the Deputy Director of Operations, the second under him, his deputy is a woman, and I believe there's also a woman as the head of the intelligence directorate. Like that, pointing to that as, a wholesale change. Well, that's good, but it's not quite yet there. I think in any case, though, when women are in an environment that is mostly dominated by men, it's that constant balance of trying not to lose your femininity, bringing your unique skills to the table, and being heard without being called bad words, right? But still being assertive. I happen to just start a book club with a group of women in Santa Fe that are all amazing from different fields. And we've decided, actually, it's not really a book club. We're really just reading articles about women navigating these waters, and how do you find that balance? It's an ongoing discussion.
Here's another quote from Byrne. Always assume the walls have ears, and you write how Vanessa deliberately takes a zigzag route wherever she goes. Is that how you lived as a CIA operative?
Absolutely. If you ever do the same route every single day in a row, consecutively, sequentially, then you are setting yourself up for all sorts of things. You know, people then can read what your schedule is. Whether it was, there was a classic case, it was the Red Army faction in Germany that went after a NATO general. This is in the 70s. But the general had sort of telegraphed what he was a man of routine. You know, every day he left the office at this time, he would have lunch so-and-so and come home at another time, always along the same route. And even though they had three, his car and then the chase car and a lead car, it's not that hard to figure it out when it's given away like that. And in fact, his car was blown up just, according exactly to the terrorist schedule. So when you are living and working overseas, it really makes sense to mix it up a lot where you're going, not make it so easy. Doesn't mean it's impossible. You don't want to hand anything away. Whether you're meeting an asset or whether you are just, going shopping and doing errands, you don't know if perhaps you've been identified as American intelligence, so it just makes sense to be prudent.
And they are in your novels. And this was a really surprising part about this book. What was your purpose in having a deputy national security advisor be a Christian extremist?
The real deputy, I had to apologize to him. It's someone named Ben Rhodes, who's a decent guy and works really hard, really smart. But for the purposes of the book, a very bad fellow is someone in that position. And I don't think it's lost on anyone if you've given it thought, as we see the atrocities that are happening with ISIS, throughout the incredible territory that they have taken very quickly. I mean, where are we? 9 months ago? Did anyone even know what ISIS was, really? I mean, all of this has happened so rapidly. And their heinous behavior, I believe, is really no different than what we see here. And let me explain. There's some elements that have deeply infiltrated the military, in particular the Air Force Academy. They're so-called Christians, and I put that in air quotes, just like I put Islamic State in air quotes, because it actually has nothing to do with the genuine tenets of Christianity or Islam. But they're called many names, but one is dominionist, whereby they believe that their allegiance in the military is due, they owe their allegiance to the book of Revelation and the apocalypse and hurrying that along versus the U.S. Constitution. I have no problem with whatever religion you want to practice whatsoever, but the military is not the place with such a hierarchical structure. And we have seen too many cases where people with these beliefs are in positions of real power, or pressure anyway. How about coming to that Bible meeting on Tuesday night? Oh, no? Well, so much for your promotion. I am not overstating it. For anyone that doubts me, you can look up Military Religious Freedom Foundation, which is actually based out in Albuquerque. And they represent, now they have over 30,000 clients, U.S. servicemen and women. And here's the crazy part. 98% of them are Christian, but deemed not Christian enough. They have no other place to go except for this Military Religious Freedom Foundation to say, I feel that because I'm not participating in my commander's prayer circle, or I want to opt out of some religious thing that's going on the base, that I have been discriminated against. Given what we now know, it keeps coming out as well about the military and how well they've done with sexual assaults in the military, it's not surprising that there are a lot of things that really need to be fixed. So, back to your question of why did I do that? I was trying to subtly, not so subtly, make the point that any extreme views are out of step with our constitutional values, with what our country was founded on, freedom from a religion, as well as to practice any religion you want.
Okay. Actually had to rewrite this question about 2 hours before I came here, but burn includes a hostage situation. This year, the militant group Islamic State has killed 3 American hostages. Today we learned that Luke Summers, an American journalist, and a South African teacher, Pierre Corky, were killed during a failed rescue attempt. This stirs a debate on how the U.S. should handle these hostage situations. What is your opinion?
The U.S. has come under a great deal of criticism, and I can God, heaven forbid anyone, the parents of those that are over there, because why hasn't the government paid the ransom that they're asking for? I mean, if it was your child, you would do anything, right? You would do anything to free them. But the U.S. government has a policy: we do not pay ransoms, we do not pay terrorists. And in fact, in the case of ISIS, it's astonishing. They've made over, what was the figure I saw? 40 million sounds too high, maybe it was 4 million. But in any case, a whole bunch of money just from ransoms. That is paid by European nations for aid workers, teachers, and so forth. So as crushing as it is to say we can't bargain for your freedom, I think that is the only way that we, as at least U.S. government policy, can proceed. People that, and it seemed those that have been so horribly killed were there in peace. They were not combatants, and that's, ISIS is counting on that, the shock value. It is so shocking. There are no rules of war. They will do anything. Their extremism and their very slickly produced online videos are trying to recruit others from around the world. But I don't believe, if I was as painful as it would be, I don't believe the U.S. government should pay ransoms. It will feed the beast.
In this case, there was a rescue attempt.
Yeah, well, that's fair enough. It was, I heard 2 different stories. First, I heard that that Navy SEALs had gone to this really remote cave in Yemen, and if you've ever seen pictures, it is so remote out there. But they had gone there and freed some hostages, but they discovered that the 2, Luke Summers and another, had been moved. And now we hear this morning, I don't know if it was that same raid or another, I'm confused, but they were killed in the attempted rescue. And I'm not sure the answer would be, well, let's not try, right? If that's tough luck.
Tough situation. Okay, on to a little bit of politics here. Do you think the CIA has become less relevant as the National Security Agency, aka NSA, seems to become more dominant in intel activities?
We could have a whole conversation about Snowden. So my personal bias comes from my own experience working in the CIA. I did human intelligence. I spot, assess, develop, and recruit. And I believe that is really a critical part. So you might have we do have a vast apparatus of being able to collect signals intelligence, electronics intelligence, all the stuff the NSA that we know is sucking out of our Amazon accounts or whatever, and our phone contact list. But that doesn't provide intent nor motivation necessarily. That only comes about when you have an actual relationship between an intelligence officer and an asset to understand really what is the intent. For instance, let me give you an example. Don't you think that President Obama, when the Russian tanks were massing on the border with Ukraine, wished more than anything that he had a human source inside of Putin's circle? Because of course all the satellite pictures gives us, we see 70 tanks right there amassed. But, maybe that's just a high stakes game of chicken. We don't know. And it's only human intelligence that can tell you through, which is done over time, establishing rapport and some trust and sometimes some respect. because the motivations for people to spy for the United States are multifaceted. But that is a critical piece, and I think we fall in love with technology, and certainly as we General Keith Alexander, who just left, the head of the NSA, whose motto was collect it all. He's at the top of this vast pyramid, but they are in love with technology and what it can do, and and how to make connections, and that's all really important. But it misses. Maybe I sound nostalgic or something, but I believe it's true. It misses a human element. There is nothing like meeting with someone who is in some cases putting their life and their family's lives in jeopardy because they believe that the United States should know that information.
Well, you bring up Obama, and my question is, how would you grade the Obama administration?
I don't think this administration is very good at putting out what has been accomplished, and by any means he has faced a headwind from the day he was inaugurated, from the very day. Yeah, I can see where this crowd is. I don't have to, right? I mean, you really do wish you had that, and maybe we will see, but what was that movie with Michael Douglas, the American president, he sort of throws, or in the West Wing, where they sort of throw out the script, and they're just going to do what they think is right. That is not going to happen to Obama just because he's a more cautious personality. That's not how he's going to do it. But he has done a lot of things. We're still in such a swirl of it. This is a very difficult time. I just can't take seriously those who say, though, well, this has nothing to do with the fact that he is a man of color. I think that's an element. It's not the only thing, but it's those that find that threatening find every reason to thwart at his every move. So it'll be interesting to see. Obviously, the Republicans, over to them. Let's see if they can govern. Can they get anything through? I saw that there is good news. In this last Congress, the number of post offices that have been renamed, for some muckety-muck, has fallen. So that's good. And I'm trying to remember, I just saw it last night. Stephen Colbert, he was doing a great skit on, was it just last night? On what they did. Sorry. It was funny, but one of those things where if it wasn't funny, you cry.